You're listening to the Elias Makos Show on CJAD 800. My name is Robyn Flynn, filling in for Elias today and tomorrow. Members of the Federation of Quebec Family Doctors voted 97% in favor of an agreement in principle with the Quebec government, with the understanding that Bill 2 would be significantly watered down. So what would that actually look like? Here to chat a little bit about that is Dr. Laura Sang, family doctor in the Lower Laurentians. Hi, Dr. Sang. Thank you so much for being here.
Hi, good morning. Thank you for having me.
So I know that Bill 2 has been majorly controversial. What were the main points of contention with the bill in its original form?
Main issues really were sort of this method of payment that did not reflect the work that we did, led to a significant decrease in pay to the point that we were unable to cover clinic rents, putting many clinics at risk of closing, as well as these performance indicators that we were unable to meet without further resources, and a very penalizing system that pretty much, put a lot of the blame on physicians for not being able to provide certain care that ultimately comes from a lack of resources to provide that care.
Yeah. And, you mentioned that, putting clinics at risk of closing and doctors at risk of needing to leave. But the damage has already sort of been done, right? I think I saw some news stories about clinics closing. And are you worried about the damage being already done? Students maybe who were thinking about applying for med school at McGill have maybe changed their mind and decided to apply elsewhere. Or, the wheels are sort of already in motion for Quebec doctors to leave the province. Maybe they've already put in applications. Are you at all worried about that?
Absolutely. There are some people, there are some resources, clinics, what it may be, that had already made the commitment to leave, had already changed their plans, and I don't think that those are people or establishments that we're going to be able to get back. This entire situation was not without casualties, was not without harm to healthcare workers and the population at large. The mental health of physicians during this time significantly declined. I know there was a statement made by the PAMQ, which is an organization for doctors in distress, and they were receiving record numbers of calls. And while there's sort of a calm that's happened now, I think that everyone is, to some extent, recovering psychologically from the fear and stress that they were living in about whether or not they'd actually be able to practice, what was going to happen to their patients, what was going to happen to the population at large. So, yeah, there is damage, and there's going to be a long recovery ahead for those resources that we lost, because Quebec in particular is very hard to replace physicians compared to other provinces, in part because of the language laws, but also because of the PTEM and AMP system, which is where you need a permit to work in a specific region that is unique to Quebec. And if they do not open up more of those positions or obtain some laxity, there are a lot of people who are willing to stay in practice that can't.
Well, now that there's an agreement in principle with the Quebec government, where do we go from here? What happens next?
I'd like to see real, honest collaboration between the government and physicians. We know what we need on the front lines. We would like to be heard and acknowledged and given the resources that we need to provide care. I'd like to see investments in primary care to try to keep people from getting to the point of needing emergency care and hospitalization, and restructuring in these PTEM and AMP systems, allowing more flexibility, allowing physicians who want to practice to be able to do so within their capacities. And as far as the payment system goes, I don't think anyone is necessarily opposed to changing the structure and the way that physicians are paid, as long as it is fair and it reflects the work that we're doing and that we're compensated, in a way that makes sense.
Yeah. Well, Quebec has a new health minister now. Sonia Bélanger was sworn in on Friday. This is after the former health minister, Christian Dubé, who pretty much built Bill 2, was forced to step down over all of this. What do you hope she does differently than Christian Dubé?
I hope that, again, there is an openness to collaborate with physicians, that this is a decision that is going to be made with us, not for us, that has our input and our best interests, as well as the general population's best interests at heart. And I hope that she's able to be informed truly about the issues that we are experiencing on the front lines, and is able to, work with our representatives to create something that would actually, benefit Quebecers now and in the future.
It's interesting because I understand the purpose of Bill 2 was to try to get more Quebecers access to family doctors. Obviously, that failed miserably. It kind of worked opposite of that with a lot of physicians leaving the province. But, it's a difficult situation because so many Canadians don't have access to a primary care physician. So, do you have some ideas on what we could do to help with this? Is this bringing in more doctors? Is this increasing patient load? What do we do to make sure that more Quebecers are being seen and not turning to the ERs as they are right now?
I guess if I had to pick three main things that needed to happen is, one, reducing administrative barriers. So like these systems that are put in place that significantly regulate where and how doctors can practice. Because if you allowed people to do more part-time work, allowed people to be more present in their offices and not be forced to work in two different places, they could be more available to their patients and sort of offload the ER by being able to see more walk-ins. Two, greater support for administrative assistants and other allied healthcare professionals. If you don't have enough secretaries to schedule patients, if you don't have enough nurses to be able to book ORs, these are all things that create a backlog in patients being able to be seen. So if you invest in those systems that actually allow people to properly book appointments and cancel appointments and follow up on those, you're going to have a lot less no-shows, and a lot of, those appointments that otherwise would be unfilled will now actually be filled with patients that can be seen. And thirdly, I do think to some extent either we need more personnel or we need a rearrangement of personnel that, again, allows sort of the flow of healthcare to happen. For example, again, with the AMP system that I work under, I'm mandated to be in two places at once. If there was a certain flexibility that I could be in my office, every day, then of course I would be able to see a higher volume of, of walk-in patients. And the famous administrative barrier that a lot of physicians face in terms of, paperwork, filling out forms, if there was a way that could be simplified and streamlined, that would also be much appreciated, because that would open up our availability to see patients instead of seeing forms and paperwork.
Yep, absolutely. Dr. Laura Syng, family doctor in the Lower Laurentians. Thank you so much for your time today. Really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me.
Canadian women are looking for more out of themselves, their businesses, their elected leaders, and the world around them.
And that's why we're thrilled to introduce the Honest Talk podcast.
I'm Jennifer Stewart.
And I'm Catherine Clark. And in this podcast, we interview Canada's most inspiring women.
Entrepreneurs, artists, athletes, politicians, and newsmakers, all at different stages of their journey.
So if you're looking to connect, then we hope you'll join us.
Listen to the Honest Talk podcast on iHeartRadio or wherever you listen to your podcasts.